The Hard Count is presented by BetMGM. As y'all know by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this college football season. We'll be using their lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for all of you each week. Now, when you join BetMGM, you get access to a variety of parlay selection features like same-game parlays, live betting options, and more. If you haven't signed up yet for BetMGM, use bonus code HARDCOUNT, and you'll get up to $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how that works. 1, download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code HARDCOUNT. 2, deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. Step 3, you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code HARDCOUNT when you sign up. Let's make this college football season 1 for the books. Let's make it legendary. Let's get to the show. How many teams can actually win a national championship this year in the context of this college football season? I was the guy before the year saying, why are we expanding the playoff? There's never more than 4 teams that can actually hoist that trophy anyway. And as I sit here heading into the month of October, on October 1st, 2025, last one to the face of the planet, I think there's 13 teams that could get it done this year. Welcome into the Hard Count, presented by BetMGM. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Guess what? It's college football. It's nothing but college football. Every single day, all year long. But now is probably the time that you want to be as dialed in as possible during college football season. So again, make sure you're subscribed. You won't regret it. College football, nothing but college football. But I want to go back to what I just said a moment ago. I think there's 13 teams right now that can win a national championship. How bizarre is that? Some of this is just the way the tectonic plates have shifted in the sport. Some of this is the transfer portal. Some of this is NIL. Whatever it is, man, I think as we sit here right now, there's that many teams that could legitimately compete for a national championship. So I'm going to go conference by conference here and break it down for you as to which teams I feel good about right now that could win a national title. Here's the massive precursor, though. I'm taking into account the way that you're built. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you are an option team and you're undefeated, hats off to you. I have real reservations about what you would do against Ohio State. So take that into account here as we go conference by conference here. But where else should we start but the conference that's won the last 2 national championships? I think in the Big Ten, there is 4 teams legitimately right now that I could see winning a national championship. Let's go team by team here. I think Oregon's the Bear Grylls of college football. Drop them off wherever you want. Drop them off in a game against, the Georgia Bulldogs. Feel fine about Oregon holding their own. Drop them off to Austin, Texas. Feel fine about them holding their own. Drop them off in a rock fight, they can win that game. Drop them off in a shootout, they can win that game. They're the ultimate survivor in college football. I think Oregon, what they did against Penn State, should be proof enough for us to feel good about saying that. Once again, Dan Lanning's Oregon Ducks can win a national championship this year. Do they do it, though? Remains to be seen, but I love the way they're built. Line of scrimmage, quarterback play weapons, all that. Not a hot take to say Oregon can win a national championship this year. Now, Ohio State, do they go back-to-back? I think it's definitely within the realm of possibility. If you're objecting to this thought, there's probably 2 things you're saying. One, well, JD, they got a Michigan problem, don't they? Yeah, lost to Michigan last year. Still won the national title. They could lose to Michigan again this year. I don't care. They could still win the national championship, okay? That's one thing you're saying. The other thing maybe you're saying is, well, JD, what's Julian Sayin right now? What is he? You know, he's good, but is he like the Ohio State caliber of quarterback we've come to know, like the C.J. Stroud, the Justin Fields? We'll talk about that a little bit later in this show, believe you me. But if you're concerned about a quarterback that is currently completing 79% of his passes, and we've still only played 1 month of college football, I don't have a lot for you. You know what I'm saying? Penn State, JD, James Franklin, big games. That number is tough to avoid at this point, like 4-21 against top 10 teams. I understand it's tough to make a case for Penn State, but I don't want to be too victim of the moment here. Like, James Franklin's not playing 25 games against top 10 teams for them to win a national championship. It's this team, this year. So the history of it is, I understand, a little bit concerning, but they just played arguably the best team in college football in Oregon to a double overtime game and lost on the last play. Like, you know what I'm saying? There's not a lot that I can say here definitively as to why Penn State can't catch fire, do what Ohio State did last year, turn the tables, play angry, play inspired, because the talent isn't the question for Penn State. They can win a national championship. Now, the 4th team here for the Big Ten that can win a national title. Y'all, I think if you're saying Indiana can't do it, the burden of proof is on you to make a definitive case as to why they can't do it. Because Curt Cignetti has 2 losses so far as the head coach at IU. Both of them are two teams that have played for a national championship a year ago in Notre Dame and Ohio State. And it'd be one thing if Indiana was just sort of finding a way outside the box to win these games. They're playing line of scrimmage football and winning with quarterback play as well. Fernando Mendoza has been phenomenal this year. And then when it comes to what they're doing on the defensive side, they are top 10 in America in tackles for a loss as well as sacks. So Indiana, man, I understand like the logo is hard to wrap your mind around, and I know it's the second-year head coach in Kurt Cignetti out there in Bloomington. I'm just saying now, the way they are doing it, the product that they are playing with, Indiana, that will translate when they get to the college football playoff. I think they're one of those teams that could win a national championship in the Big Ten, and if you feel differently, I need you to tell me what I'm missing, because so far through a month of the season, I trust Indiana. Let's go to the SEC. I still think Georgia can win a national championship. I do. Like, I'm not falling for the Bama head fake. Last year they lost to Bama too, and they won the SEC, and maybe things go differently last year if Carson Beck stays healthy. I don't know. That's a hypothetical we will never have the answer to. But this Georgia team seems to have another year offensively with Gunnar Stockton running the show. I trust the weaponry. And, y'all, I trust Kirby Smart. Like, does anyone really feel that great betting against Kirby Smart to win a national championship, which, oh, by the way, would be his third? I'm not betting against Georgia to win another national championship. The Bama game doesn't scare me. Alabama, though, them beating Georgia, to me, makes them a national title contender. If that version of Alabama shows up every single week, which is a big if, but if that's the case, Alabama can win a national championship. At quarterback, maybe you have less like physical giftings than what you had with Jalen Milroe, but you have more dependability. Like Kalen DeBoer now, for his first time in Tuscaloosa, has a quarterback that he can game plan with and know what he's getting with that quarterback every single week. Ty Simpson still hasn't thrown a pick. That defense and their ability, when they're playing their brand of ball, good enough to win. The receiver room, good enough to win. Would like to see a little bit more from that offensive line. But if you can go beat Georgia at Georgia, I'm not putting a cap on anything you can do going forward here. So Alabama, they can win a national championship. Now, Ole Miss, new to the conversation. Before the year, I was not saying this. I wasn't even saying Ole Miss was a playoff team before the year. So hear me clearly. But after seeing what they did against LSU, the way that they, quite frankly, did whatever they wanted offensively against LSU, which I still think LSU is a really freaking good defense, Ole Miss down the stretch here will play 2 games on the road that are going to be tough. But outside of that, I think Ole Miss might be favored every single game the rest of the way. Like at Georgia, at Oklahoma, the ones that make you nervous. Is anyone putting anything past Lane Kiffin? With a 4-quarter situation where it's like, hey, our guy versus your guy, our play caller versus your play caller, our scheme versus your scheme. I think Lane Kiffin will have something for you every single week. Trinidad Chambliss, too, the way that he is elevated from D2 to the SEC and looked like he's just, belongs in every single sense of the word. I trust Trinidad Chambliss. Ole Miss, bit of a wild card for sure with what we don't know about them with returning production from last year to this year. It's kind of going to be a thing with Lane Kiffin every single year. Ole Miss showed me something against LSU, and I'm excited to see how they develop the rest of the way. But Ole Miss, I think, can win a national championship based on what we've seen to this point in the year. Line of scrimmage play, running the football. Got to have more stopping the run. That's true. But, I don't know, look good against LSU. So, it's LSU. We'll see. But we move along. A&M can win a national championship. This is not the old A&M. Old A&M would have maybe not won that game against Notre Dame and then come back home off a bye week, either felt sorry for themselves for losing to Notre Dame or felt great about themselves for beating Notre Dame and then rolled out there against a talented Auburn team and not met the moment, kind of been a little bit lackadaisical, and they would have lost to Auburn. This is new A&M. Talent's never been the question, but now you have talent and a quarterback to go with it. You have a head coach with a true identity. You have an offense with a true identity. You have a defense that flies around. Listen, we'll see what they are the rest of the way. They got to finish. But I trust A&M, and I trust this version of A&M with Mike Elko's traits, their culture, their character, all those things. I don't think A&M is going to just fall off the face of the map, dude. I really think this is a dependable A&M team, as dependable as we've seen in recent years. And with that talent, they can win a national championship. Now, these last 2 teams in the SEC will get some pushback for, and that's more than fine. But here we go. I think LSU could still win a national championship. I'm going to give you a second to laugh and get your jokes out. Okay, here's the thing. Is part of this me not being able to quit LSU? Admittedly, yeah, 100%. But when I remove emotion out of it, this is still a team with, I believe, one of the best defenses in college football, And when they play complementary football, if they can play complementary football, I don't know who's going to just be the blind, far and away pick when you line it up against LSU. Like, I think that Garrett Nussmeier and what he has been to this point in the year is a little bit jarring. I personally am not 100% sure that he's playing healthy. That's my feel on this. But I've seen Garrett Nussmeier show up in big spots here over the course of the last season. I saw him throw for 4,000 yards with no run game. I've said it multiple times. Garrett Nussmeier flipping that switch and this offense maybe reinventing themselves a little bit with those skill players and that quarterback, you got to run the football. There's no way around it. But I'm not putting it past LSU to catch fire offensively with that quarterback. It'd be one thing if it was like, hey, this Garrett Nussmeier guy, first-year starter, we don't really know a lot about him. We put a lot of hype on him going into the year. That's not the situation. I think Garrett Nussmeier is a known commodity. Take it a step further here, and I don't want to be hot takey, but this is just how I feel about it. If you had to go with Michael Van Buren, you feel okay about that in certain spots, right? I don't know if you win a national title with Michael Van Buren, but the point I'm trying to make in all of this is I still trust the defense. I still trust Nussmeier. If that offense can figure it out, which is a lot easier to figure it out when you trust your quarterback, we'll see. I'm not out on LSU just yet after one poor showing on the road against Ole Miss. And this is one that I had talked myself into a little bit, one that Cade and I talked about quite a bit. Texas, I think, is one Arch Manning solid therapy session away from being right back into the mix of winning a national championship. Because as jarring as the Ohio State game was, as bad as he looked, and he looked bad, as frustrating as the UTEP game was for a Texas fan, if you're booing Arch Manning, I don't blame you. As bad as that was, you still have one of the top rosters in college football. You still have one of the top defenses in college football. And you still have a quarterback who has a ton of ability to where if he were to get it figured out upstairs, who's stopping Texas? Now, you'd like that to happen here pretty quick, Arch, because you go to the Swamp this Saturday. But again, as bad as it looked against Ohio State, you still lost to what we believe is the best team in college football in the Buckeyes by a touchdown at their place. Noon kick. Quarterback's first real big-time start. That means anything? So I don't know, man. I'm not ready to write off Texas just yet. Now, right now, I don't have them in my top 10. I'm not saying what Texas has done to this point at all is impressive, but I'm not ruling out that talent eventually waking up and doing some things that they set out to do before the year started. So Texas can win a national championship. Now, these next couple conferences we're going to go through a little bit more efficiently because there's way less teams. I think there's one team in the Big 12 that can win a national championship, and that's Texas Tech. And a lot's going to be made about, the money when it comes to how they put this roster together and whatever. If you want to speak down on Texas Tech because they invested a lot into their roster, I would say go and check what your roster has. And if your team is good, you probably put some money into it. And if your team isn't good, I would say don't yell about being broke. That's me. But when it comes to Texas Tech, I trust the way they're built. It's quarterback play, whether it's Baron Morton or Will Hammond. It's the weapons that I legitimately think can line up with most teams in college football with how Mac Leftwich, the play caller for Texas Tech, is getting it dialed up. And then also line of scrimmage. I think that defensive line is legit good, not just for the Big 12. I think it's good across any conference. I think they will be able to show up on any field and feel good about their chances on 3rd and 1, 4th and 1. Maybe you don't win every single matchup when it's 3rd and 1, 4th and 1 when you're out there against the Ohio States of the world and you're out there against the Texas of the world, but I do think that with what they've done to assemble that line of scrimmage, it's good enough. It's good enough. And so if it's good enough, we've seen that's the key piece now to price of admission in the college football playoff and winning national championships. And I think Texas Tech has that. Now, in the ACC, I think there's one team, and I think it's Miami. We'll talk more about them later in the show. I trust them, dude. It's a Mario Cristobal line of scrimmage, offensive and defensive. It's a quarterback now with some scars, his 3rd year starting in the sport. It is an offensive coordinator in Shannon Dawson that seems to know what he's doing when it comes to elevating those playmakers. I don't think this is the Miami of old that is fun to watch and is exciting and polarizing, but ultimately falls flat in November. I think this is legitimately a culture now in year 4 under Cristobal that has real locker room leadership from guys they recruited in their first cycle that are Francis Mauanoa, Reuben Bain, Mark Fletcher. There is a certain adult attitude about Miami, and I think that's going to carry over. They play with violence. I think they're the best team in the ACC, and I think they could legitimately go on a run here and win a national championship. So that's the Power 4 here. Big 10, SEC, Big 12, ACC. One more school we're forgetting, though, huh? One more school to talk about. They don't have a conference. They've got 2 losses on their schedule already to this point in the year, but Notre Dame, I'm not writing off Marcus Freeman. I'm not. Like, you have 2 losses to what I believe to be 2 top 5 teams in the sport against A&M and Miami. And I still think with what you have on this roster, it's good enough to go on and run and win a national championship. And, like, put it to you this way. The vibes around Notre Dame after that loss to Texas A&M, as bad as they were, I have to believe the belief internally isn't at a place where it was a year ago after the loss to NIU. Like, losing to 2 top 5 teams by combined 4 points versus losing to a G5 team. Do we really think less of this Notre Dame team? Now they got to go on a run here and they got to be convincing, but Notre Dame, should they get in the dance, I remember very clearly what that Marcus Freeman coached football team did last year. And I think this Notre Dame team is capable now of doing the same with better weaponry, with a quarterback that's better pushing the ball downfield, with a defense I think you still should feel pretty solid about, regardless of what A&M is. Notre Dame can still win a national championship. So I got 13 teams. I got 4 from the Big Ten. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 from the SEC, 1 each from the Big 12 and the ACC, and 1 from the independent variety when it comes to Notre Dame. So let me know your thoughts. I think there's 13 teams that can win a national championship. I am not married to this. This could change. We've been wrong before, but this is how I feel about it right now. And excited to see y'all's take on this because I think it's one that will spark a lot of conversation for us as a college football community. Not trying to be hot takey, not trying to say anything we don't mean, but this season in itself feels like one of those that's going to be talked about for a long time when it comes to how wild it was. So for that reason, plus the college football playoff structure, 13 teams I think could win a national championship heading into the month of October. Now, one of my favorite people in this space, someone that honestly inspired me a lot, especially growing up, watching Sports Nation and watching the Herd on FS1 was Colin Cowherd. He does a segment, Calling Right, Calling Wrong, that I think is absolutely money, where he'll go through his takes from the weekend or his takes from a previous game and just say, hey, I was right here, I was wrong here. I want us to do that together right now relative to some of these offseason takes. Because, hey, there was a couple we hit out of the park. There's one of these that I think we were dead wrong on. This is not all-encompassing, but a couple of takes I want us to unpack together. We'll start with where we were wrong. We were wrong. I say we. I was wrong about Miami, y'all. I was wrong. Before the year, I was like, hey, they'll be good. They'll be solid. I think they're a team that plays for an ACC title. I think they finished 10-2 but missed the college football playoff because I got to lose to Notre Dame in the preseason. And obviously, crow in my mouth, that was not the take at all. That was incorrect. But the reason why I felt that way was you look at Miami in the preseason, there's a lot of blanks to fill in. A lot of blanks that needed to be filled in and filled in to the point where they like offset the picture of Miami football from the year before. Because the blank on the defensive side was like, dude, can we stop somebody on the back end? Mario Cristobal said on this show, we got exposed in the secondary. Got exposed. Not good enough. Have to be better. Go to the portal. Bring in some fresh blood on the defensive staff as well. Okay, great. How much better can a defense really get in 9 months? Was my thought process here relative to what they were a year ago. And then the other part of that is the offense. Cam Ward was incredible. Cam Ward is one of my favorite college football players we've had in the last decade with how he operates, with his composure, just straight up watching him play ball. He was the number 1 pick in the NFL draft for a reason. You lost him as well as a ton of your pass catchers that made him the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. So I'm like, okay, that's a lot to lose. And you had that. You still missed the college football playoff. I like Miami. I trust Cristobal more than most with what they're building, how they recruit, all those things. But for me, I'm going to be a little bit more conservative on how I view Miami. Now, bottom line, I was wrong. That was not true at all. Miami has been extremely reliable, which is not something you could say about Miami in previous years. Like the way that Miami is built, and the reason why I'm wrong, is Miami has things that I believe are going to carry over week in and week out over the course of a college football season. Like, I don't think a lot of external circumstances are going to rattle this version of Miami, whether they're on the road, letdown spot, look-ahead spot, rivalry game, whatever. I think Miami is going to be pretty foundational to what they are every single week. They're trustworthy. They are going to be a line of scrimmage team. I don't think the line of scrimmage, I'll say this is a better way to put it, offensively and defensively, they will never lose a game because they got manhandled up front. They will never have a game where it's like, well, that team ran for 250 yards and Miami couldn't run the football, therefore they lose. Too many good players. They've stockpiled the trenches since Cristobal's gotten there. What did we say when he got hired? He's going to major in where he's from the football world. He was an offensive lineman. He understands what it is. That has to be prioritized. They prioritize it. What do you know? 4 years later, Miami is a wagon up front, not just for the ACC, for anywhere in college football. Okay, check. That's going to travel. It's going to translate. They have a third-year starting quarterback in Carson Beck. First year with the Canes. But the longer I sit with the Carson Beck experience at Miami, it's still early. I hear that. I love what he brings to the table running the system. I love the arm talent. That's all obvious. Yo, I think that Carson Beck is a stable bet at this point in the college football season because I love the dude's scars. You know what I'm saying? Like, think about what happened a year ago for Ohio State. Things go off the rails. You lose to Oregon. Will Howard, what are you doing? You slid too early. Lose to Michigan. Everyone's talking about Ohio State once again losing to the Wolverines and all those things. If Will Howard hadn't had his experience at Kansas State, where it's up and down and the fan base is in on you, they're out on you, eventually you leave. Some people reading the tea leaves there and saying, hey, he wasn't going to be the guy. It's Avery Johnson's turn. If he hadn't had to go through that part of his story before getting to Ohio State, I don't know if Ohio State has the composure as a team to win the national championship. Carson Beck, it's up at Georgia his first year. He's the number one overall pick. Last year, it's like, man, is Carson really the right guy for the job here? You just got the injury, and then everyone's talking about it in the offseason. Like, I love what Carson Beck has had to go through to get to where he's at right now at Miami, and that's a big reason why I trust him, man. Fourth quarter, game on the line. I don't think he's taking a bunch of deep breaths and having big eyes. Like, I think Carson Beck and the composure he brings because of his scars is why I trust the Miami offense, okay? Last thing here, we talked about it before earlier in the show. I'll talk about it again. There's a certain culture now at Miami that is owned by that locker room. What I mean by that is you can go to the portal and grab key pieces and you can try to put together a culture, but it's a lot harder to do than if you got a bunch of guys that you recruit that know what you're about as a head coach, that know what you're trying to install, and have spent the better part of the last 3 years trying to build it up and get it to where it's at right now. That is the leaders in your locker room right now. Francis Mauigoa, part of Cristobal's first true recruiting class. Mark Fletcher, part of his first true recruiting class. Ruben Bain, potentially a Heisman candidate here, part of his first true recruiting class. They were there when they were getting clowned for not taking a knee against Georgia Tech. They were there last year when they go win 10 football games. Like they've been through the ups and downs. And so with that being the case, they've been a part of setting the temperature for what Miami football was going to be going forward. And with that being, the overall just position for Miami, I don't want to do the whole like Miami is back thing, the U is back, because I think that's sort of clickbaity and just for thumbnails. But like legitimately, doesn't this Miami, with them being able to block out the noise and being able to travel from week in to week out and not be dictated too much by the external circumstances of a season, isn't that kind of what made the U originally? Was like, we don't care about you. We don't care about who we're playing. We don't care what time it is. We don't care what happened the week before. We're showing up at your place or you're showing up at our place, and you're going to get to experience Hurricane football. That's the vibe I get from this team. And so when you look ahead to Miami's rest of their schedule here, if Miami beats Florida State, they might be the number one seed in the college football playoff because I don't know who they're losing to. Like Louisville could be kind of sneaky, sure. At SMU, maybe. At Pitt to end the year, like potentially. But I get the feeling now that Miami's not going to have that massive letdown game they had against Georgia Tech last year, against Syracuse last year. I don't think that's going to be this team for all the reasons I already told you. I think they're dependable. I think they're mature. And I think that this point in the year, a year ago, we were trying to figure out like, hey, Miami played Cal really close, and Virginia Tech took a Hail Mary that fell incomplete after a review to get out of that game alive. Like, you were trying to almost talk yourself into that Miami team and trying to figure out how you're going to plug holes. There's no holes with this Miami team that I'm frantically trying to plug in real time if I'm a Hurricane fan or on that staff in Miami. So for Miami, I trust them. We were wrong. Hand up, we were wrong on Miami before the year. We'll see how they finish. But even if they don't finish as a college football playoff team, the brand of ball they're playing, the way that Cristobal's built this roster, the way that they've added via the portal, we were wrong about Miami and more than happy to make that known. So we were wrong about the Canes. Now, we were wrong about the Canes. I think we were on the money when it came to talking about Oregon. Oregon, going into the year, understandably, there were some questions from the college football public. Hey, you lost another Heisman finalist in Dillon Gabriel. And before the year, Dillon Gabriel had played a lot of college football before coming to Oregon, so there was more, I think, certainty around the floor for that Oregon offense. But like this year, it's Dante Moore. And Dante Moore is a high-profile recruit, but he's at UCLA. he admittedly says, I need more time to develop, goes to Eugene. So it wasn't like you just had this next man up mentality that maybe you had the year before with Dylan Gabriel. Returning production in general was in the triple digits. A lot of new faces for Oregon. That would have to step up in a big way for Oregon to be where they're at right now. And so with those questions, as much as that's fair, we never ever thought that Oregon was going to be a middle of the tier Big Ten team. To put it more simply, a lot of people had Oregon in that upper tier of the Big Ten, but we always said we think Oregon's a playoff team and we think they're going to be a team that plays for a Big Ten championship. Okay, there will not be a drop-off in Oregon from last year to what Oregon is this year. And I think we were on the money here because our thing we said throughout the entirety of the offseason was, I'm not worried about Oregon having hit the reset button here. We trust the talent. I'm not worried about the proven production side of this thing. And for Oregon now, I think the reason why we hit this on the money, I think the reason why Oregon's at where they're at, it goes back to Dan Lanning. Dan Lanning, in every sense of the word, is a maximizer. The question was, hey, we like the raw ingredients. How long is it going to take to bake? We said, I trust Dan Lanning. And so far, through 5 weeks of the college football season, that has been proven to be true. Here's the reason why we thought that was the case. People go to Oregon and they get better. Like before, the quarterback's a great example. Bo Nix coming over from Auburn. Hey, like, is he going to be in a battle to win the job? Fast forward the tape, Heisman finalist, first-round pick. Dylan Gabriel, we liked him a lot going into the year. We thought he was a good player. I think most people trusted what he was at Oklahoma. But him being a Heisman finalist, him being a top 3 NFL draft pick, got better at Oregon. Even on the team right now, Malik Benson has been at Bama, been at Florida State. He's making plays for the Ducks right now. He's going to just blow his stats out of the water from the last couple of years. Some of that's having a more capable quarterback. I think a lot of that is Dan Lanning and Oregon putting him in position to succeed. Barry Alexander, he looks better. You go to Oregon immediately, Dan Lanning and this staff at Oregon has a way to maximize you from the jump and get the most out of you. There's 2 reasons why. One, I think Dan Lanning and that staff do all the things correct on like the football side of things at the highest level. Some of those that I'm sure I'm not even privy to, but just based on the results, this is what I've gathered. Like the system in itself seems to be very well catered to their players. And the other part of that is there's not any specific part of this roster that is just a massive weak spot that puts a strain on other parts of the roster. Like the quarterback play is phenomenal every year. Why? Well, the system, one part of that with how they call it. 2, the receivers are always good. And then you talk about the secondary being strong. Well, yeah, because the front seven's always good. Like they do a great job evaluating and positioning their talent to be in a spot where there's no massive weak part of this roster that ends up being a reason why the Oregon teams fall flat on their face. They're very rarely at a deficit at any point in their roster and how they line it up. Now, the second and probably most important part as to why Dan Lanning's a maximizer is Dan Lanning is the best communicator in college football. You say, well, JD, Kirby Smart, right? Got a couple of natties to his name. I hear you, but I think it's a different discussion. This isn't us dunking on Kirby Smart, but I think with that being the most common rebuttal, we'll get to this discussion. I want to make sure we address that. Kirby Smart is hey, we're going to give you Bloody Tuesday. We're going to put you through the absolute grinder when it comes to practice, and you're going to have to, last through what we have here process-wise at Georgia. Like he says it a lot, man. This program's not for everybody. And that has success. Like there's obviously a proof in the pudding from what Kirby Smart does at Georgia as to why they're successful. But when it comes to like communicating with your players, I think Dan Lanning is cut out for modern college football. He does a great job of re-engaging his players week in and week out. Like how many times have you watched an Oregon hype video and seen a team meeting where Dan Lanning's like, hey, we're going to Wisconsin. In the fourth quarter, jump around is going to come on. I want you to embrace that. During this week of practice, jump around is going to come on late in the practice. I want you to take a second, savor that moment, enjoy it, go play your best ball. Conditions his team literally, mentally, to be ready to play in the fourth quarter against Wisconsin. Guess what? Came down to a fourth quarter game against Wisconsin. Who won the game? Oregon. Hey, we're going to show you a clip of Gladiator. The thumbs down whole deal. When we go play Michigan in the fourth quarter, I want you to make sure you watch us go thumbs down. Everyone empties out of that stadium because we went ahead and handled our business. Okay, like the re-engaging, the game against Penn State, it's a whiteout. Make sure that team feeds off the energy of that stadium. Like Dan Lanning does a great job of creating buy-in because of how he re-engages his players consistently. And when you create buy-in at that level, what it does is, one, your players want to play for you. It's buy-in, pretty straightforward. but maybe more importantly, the players buy into your way of doing things unknowingly. They're buying into you, Dan Lanning. And so when they buy into their head coach, you take on your coach's personality. And when you take on your coach's personality and you have a personality like Dan Lanning where you're a psychopath and you're not flinching in the fourth quarter, much less double overtime in a wideout spot, that's why Oregon won the football game. Because they took on the Dan Lanning traits, the psychopath traits, the we're here for it traits. And so I want to make sure we differentiate here. Kirby Smart's way of doing things works. It works, but also I think there's a lot of people that will say, you know what? Kirby's right. This isn't for me. Whereas Dan Lanning is, I think, a little bit more versatile in engaging different personalities and different players and allowing them to, again, play at their best and maximizing them at places maybe they hadn't worked as well before. So Oregon, I think we hit that on the head. A lot of ball to be played, but we trusted the talent. Everyone trusted the talent. But Dan Lanning, the maximizer, is why they're at where they're at and why Oregon is once again going to be in the college football playoff just conversation to begin with, but I think even further, national title conversation. And I'll say this to end it. I think this is Dan Lanning's best team. And I think we'll see that play out in the context of this season. Now, another thing that we were right about, not to pat ourselves on the back too much here, but I think we were right about Texas A&M. Going into the year, we said we think A&M is going to just be a different beast. You've heard about old A&M, Texas 8-4, Texas always told they're going to be this, that, and the other before the season, then they underachieve, they fall flat on their face, and we're sitting here saying, told you so. Texas A&M. Historically hasn't been anything, so JD, you telling us they're going to be something this year, we don't believe you. Don't believe you. And our take on that was always like, well, was Mike Elko the head coach for those previous A&M teams that went 7-5? Like last year, I hear you, but like historically, the numbers you're speaking to of A&M this many years in a row has lost this many games, like I don't subscribe to that. He wasn't there for that. And so we'll see if they're a playoff team like we predicted, but I think what we hit on the head is this is truly a different Texas A&M football team. Reason being, to this point, we've seen A&M win 2 games where previous A&M teams would have, I think, either gone 0-2 or gone 1-1. The Notre Dame game is a great example. You win on the last play. It's essentially the last play. It's a bye week. We're all talking about how good A&M is. What could A&M accomplish this year? Hey, that was awesome. Good for A&M. And then you come back home, play a really talented Auburn team. Say what you want about what they haven't been this season. Auburn's a talented football team. Check the recruiting rankings. Old A&M, I fully believe, would have gotten complacent, would have read everything on Aggie Yell, would have read everything on Tex Ags, would have felt accomplished to some extent, gotten lackadaisical, felt relief syndrome, eaten the rat poison, and lost that game to Auburn, if they beat Notre Dame at all. This A&M team not only beat Auburn, but beat Auburn in a different way to where they won the A&M, or to where they won the Notre Dame game, where they scored over 40. They won a rock fight against Auburn. That, to me, says this A&M team is wired differently than other A&M teams. Again, because of who? Your head coach, Mike Elko. That's what he's about. Culture, grit, toughness, all the boring things that look real good on a t-shirt that are fun to break it down on in winter conditioning. That's what A&M is. It's not just lip service. That's who they are. So for that reason, I feel pretty good about A&M the rest of the way. I think it's going to translate. I think it's going to be stable. And I think they'll have a consistent output week in and week out here when it comes to this November and October slate. I digress. The other part of this with A&M is all the reasons we liked them in the preseason. They've checked those boxes, but like they've checked those boxes 2 and 3 checks at a time. Like I liked Marcel Reed going into the year. I thought he'd be a top 5 quarterback in the SEC. I didn't think he'd be like go for 360 yards against Notre Dame good. I thought Marcel Reed wired a little bit differently. Okay, we say that a lot on this show. The psychopath part of his game where walk into the swamp and you don't flinch and, play well down the stretch against LSU, all those things. I didn't think he'd be like, no, I'm not flinching 4th and goal in the game in South Bend, national TV, night game, all those things. Like I didn't think he was that level of psychopath. That's been the case. I liked the weapons. Said, hey, Casey Concepcion, this was a big get for them to be the portal now. Make sure we're aware. Mario Craver, guy can real deal go. Real deal explosive. I didn't think Mario Craver would be top 10 in college football when it comes to receiving yards. I didn't think Casey Concepcion would be like impactful like that right off the bat. So that plus the defense we've seen from them, being a Mike Elko brand of defense, a little bit choppy, but for the most part, been result-oriented and gotten it done. All the reasons we liked them before the year, we've had nothing but like encouragement relative to those reasons. And sometimes you have a take in the offseason, as we all do, and you end up being right, but it looks a different way. Like a lot of people picked Ohio State to win the national championship last year. It wasn't a thing where you thought they'd go 10-2 and then catch fire with a national championship. The things that we liked about A&M before the year, not just are we right about them, like we're right about them in the way that they look. So that in itself, I think, should be confidence for an A&M fan and for the Aggie fan base at this point in time. But here's the thing that we're all going to say the rest of the way, and it's valid, but I want to make sure we speak to it. People are going to say, well, yeah, JD, weren't they in the college football playoff hunt at the end of last year? I mean, heck, even when they lost their third game, they still were in a spot where they could have gone and played Georgia in the SEC championship game if they had beaten Texas in College Station. And they didn't finish, did they? No, they didn't. You're 110% right. But here's the thing. This year's team, I think, is better positioned because so many guys on this roster, real deal players on this roster, like starters on this roster, felt the disappointment of what happened at the end of last year and the way they lost those games. And I think because of that, it's going to serve them well and create the urgency down the stretch of like, hey, not again. Not again. Not again. And also, we know what we're getting into now. When we're in the month of November and we got a pseudo playoff game on our hands, like, okay, we're not feeling sweaty palms. The knees aren't weak. Mom spaghetti staying in our like we're good to go here. There's a different level of composure having gone through it and failed and then being teed up to do it yet again. I think that's going to serve them well. Also, on the more practical side of things, I don't see the same road test for them that we saw at the end of last year. Now, you got to stay healthy. I think Le'Veon Moss being healthy would have been a game changer for them, neither here nor there. But, like, you had to go to Williams-Brice and Jordan-Hare last year at the end of the season. Those are tough spots to play, especially with what I would call a relatively young roster. So, with that being the case now going into this year, a lot of big games at home. Got to go to Missouri. Yeah, I understand that. Got to go to Texas at the end of the year. Yeah, I understand that. But I'll take those road environments over having to go to Willie B and Jordan-Hare, which were both losses that we all remember correctly, any day of the week. So this A&M team got to finish, but I trust them more to finish because of how they're built and because of the overall competitive disposition for this team so far through the 2025 season. So I think we were wrong about Miami, but right about Oregon and right about A&M. Here's a take that I want us to address right now that I think is still to be determined, and that is the outlook for Ohio State quarterback Julian Sayin. Before the year, I was like, hey, listen, Ohio State pretty much just breed quarterbacks at the top of the Big Ten. Every single year it feels like they got a guy leading the Big Ten in passing, and that was my prediction. Hey, he's going to lead the Big Ten in passing yards at the end of the year. Might still happen. Got a few individuals to chase to get that done. Julian Sayin currently 9th in the Big Ten in overall passing yards. I digress. But if you have a definitive take on Julian Sayin right now, I'm not saying you're right or wrong for that being the case. Like, we'll see. But that's kind of the case. We'll see. I don't think we know anything about Julian Sayin, for better or for worse. Like, I think there's the discussion of truck versus trailer. Are you the truck pulling your team, being the reason why you win games? Or are you the trailer kind of just along for the ride in the back and having other people pull you along and you win almost in spite of your quarterback in some ways? So far, Julian Sayin's been neither. Julian Sayin's out there riding shotgun on the aux, finding the nearest gas station, making sure we don't miss a turn on the nav. Like, Julian Sayin, he's not the track or the trailer or the truck or the trailer. Right? Julian Sayin's the co-pilot right now, dude. Just sitting shotgun. The truck right now is Ryan Day, Brian Hartline, Matt Patricia. That defense, all those things. And that's fine because you know what? Where they are right now in the context of this season is undefeated and I think the best team in college football. And I think there's a thought out there too when it comes to like how we view Ohio State quarterbacks. We're a little bit irresponsibly conditioned to just believe that an Ohio State quarterback is going to go out there and light it up, hand up. That's why I thought we would have him lead the Big Ten in passing. Might still happen. But we need to account for the context of those previous Ohio State quarterbacks and who Julian Sayin is right now in his situation. Like, Julian Sayin, his first month as a starter in college football, played, at the time, the number one team in college football in Texas, and then went on the road and played in a game where you're at a venue the team's the second longest winning streak at home in college football against Washington. Like, those are not small asks of your first-year starting quarterback, your redshirt freshman quarterback. Not a small undertaking. But we think, well, C.J. Stroud, he was awesome right away after his redshirt year. What's the difference here? C.J. Stroud had to throw the football, dude. C.J. Stroud's defense was abysmal. Julian Sayin's got a great defense. I don't need Julian Sayin going for over 400 yards passing. We're fine. Julian, just complete the passes. Don't turn it over. We'll be good, brother. 79% completion percentage, only 3 picks. That'll win. That has won. C.J. Stroud had to wing it. Dude, they went for 484 against Oregon and lost in his second start as in college football. Like, you understand this is not the same situation here. So, yes, would you like to see Julian Sayin light it up just for, the aesthetics of it? Sure. But the better aesthetic is being undefeated. Justin Fields, another example, lit it up early on in his career. One, Julian Sayin and Justin Fields, different level of experience when they got the job at Ohio State. Justin Fields played more college football. Two, Justin Fields didn't play a ranked opponent until the month of October. Okay, so there was a little bit more runway for Justin Fields to flex and put up bigger numbers and all those things. It's not the same situation for Julian Sayin. So is Julian Sayin a truck or a trailer? Like, I don't know. He's not had to do either yet. And that makes sense. Would you ask Julian Sayin to go win the game against Texas for you in his first ever start? Doesn't make sense to me. I wouldn't ask that when I have that defense. It's a disservice to the defense. Now, hear me clearly. Julian Sayin, doing what he's doing right now, can't stay stagnant, but if he even just evolves as the season progresses marginally, Ohio State, they can win the Big Ten this way. Julian Sayin could be 7th in the Big Ten in total passing yards, and Ohio State could be hoisting that trophy in Indy. Why? Because the defense, because the running game, because the skill players, I'm assuming at that point you would get them the football enough to matter and be a difference for you in certain games. And also, say the quiet part out loud here, I like this style of ball for Ohio State better when they match up against Michigan. Game control, be efficient, don't beat yourself. Ohio State kind of beat themselves a year ago against Michigan, right? And it was very eerily similar to the games that you've won to this point in the year over Texas and over Washington. Low scoring, game control, win the middle eight, kind of more of a feel thing than a scoreboard thing when it comes to who's winning that game. Bunch of missed field goals. They weren't efficient. Lose that football game. I think that this brand of ball they're playing right now sets you up better for success against Michigan. Now, will you beat them? I don't know. We're going to pick that game when it gets here. I don't know. But I do think that you're more positioned to with this style of ball behind Julian Sayin than what you've had previously. Now, I say that to also say I think to win a national championship at some point in time, got to hand Sayin the keys, dude. At some point in time, I'm not looking forward to this day, but I will eventually have to hand my daughter keys to the car and say, drive. I can't get you to where you want to go. I got work in a few hours. Your mom, my wife can't take you there. You got to drive yourself there. For Ohio State to win the national championship for the second year in a row, they're going to find themselves in a spot, whether it's against Notre Dame, whether it's against Texas again, or it's against Ole Miss or whoever. There will be a certain point in time where it's like, hey, we need Jeremiah Smith to pop the top on the defense. And the only way that happens, Julian, is if you wing it, dude. We need you to maximize our best players. You need to be able to drive this car now. And so when that time arrives, then we can say, okay, is Julian Sayin truck or trailer when he gets behind the wheel? But until then, I'm fine with how they're winning games. And also, I would say this too, with Ryan Day and Brian Hartline calling the show, I think it'll be as quarterback friendly as possible. I think they know what they're doing when it comes to elevating Julian Sayin. I'm not worried about it, man. I'm not worried about it. It's a road trip, and the best road trips switch drivers throughout the course of it. When Julian Sayin gets the keys and it's his turn to drive, that'll be the point where you can say they can or can't accomplish X, Y, and Z. At this point, there's nothing to me that says Julian Sayin is a liability for Ohio State with how they've won games. So were we right or wrong on that? To be determined with our thoughts on Julian Sayin being the guy here for Ohio State in the context of this 2025 season. All right, now we'll get another peek at Julian Sayin here in this game when they play Minnesota this weekend. Minnesota going to Ohio State. It'll be 7:30 Eastern, NBC in the shoe. Ohio State favored by 23.5 according to BetMGM at last check. If you're Ohio State now, this is your first spot where it's actually a spot, if you catch my drift there, because you just had a win over Washington and you're feeling good. It was on the road, all those things. And then now you come back home to play a game where you're favored by 4 scores and you have a potential look ahead to the game against Illinois. So how does Ohio State handle the spot in itself? Be something to watch for. And if you're Minnesota, this is the kitchen sink, baby. 23.5. We say it a lot on shows that we have games like this to break down where it's massive spreads. Smoke them if you got them. Empty the clip, baby. You leave home with anything in your playbook, that's on you. For Ohio State, man, something I'm watching, how much do they stick to their formula? You would like to think, especially early on, it is run the football, be efficient off play action, get the ball to Jeremiah Smith with the non-negotiable, get the ball to Jeremiah Smith kind of plays, and just be efficient. Like, that's how you win the game, right? I wonder a little bit, as we speak about Julian Sayin, do you see him open it up a little bit more? Because I think against Minnesota, when you're favored by this much, if you can get a little bit of a lead, I might flirt with a couple of dagger shots with Julian Sayin. I might think about saying, hey, man, like, we're up. We feel good about this. Let's let you drive for a little bit here. Now, it's just your permit, not your license right now, but we're going to let you spin a little bit, and we'll see if you opening it up against Minnesota doesn't help us more in the game at Illinois. Because if we're going, to Champaign, it's the first time we really let you open it up a little bit against a Power 4 opponent. At that point, maybe start to feel a little bit more uneasy in that game. So I think you stick to the formula early if you're Ohio State, which is, again, run the football, play great defense, be efficient when it comes to the passing game. 78% completion percentage for Julian Sayin, been efficient. Not asking too much of him early is the way to get a lead, but then if you can afford to open it up, I'd be curious to see that. All right, now more for this game breakdown in a second, but if you want to be at this game, guess what? We got you covered. Game Time, the fast, easy, safe, effective, affordable way to buy tickets. If you're an Ohio State fan, maybe you're saying, listen, Jay, it's Minnesota, and I'm listening to the game breakdown. You're going to tell me who you pick here in a couple of minutes, but like, I personally, as a Buckeye fan, I'm not getting out of bed here, leaving the comfort of my living room for a 23.5-point spread. Say, okay, I hear you. I understand. You feel that way right now, but as the game creeps closer, you're like, well, it would be cool to go see Julian Sayin, in his second ever Big Ten start. That'd be fun. It would be fun to go see what this team is here, but going into the month of October, that'd be fun. What the heck? Let's go check the prices. Game Time, up to the minute, has got you dialed in for the best prices, okay? So also, you make sure you want to get a good seat, know the view from your seat before you buy. Game Time got a feature on the app now to make sure you have that before you purchase your ticket. So if you hear nothing else, hear me clearly. Minnesota fans traveling for this game, Ohio State fans maybe thinking about going to this game, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code HARDCOUNT for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code HARDCOUNT, HARDCOUNT, for $20 off your first purchase. Swipe, tap, ticket, download the Game Time app today. So back to the breakdown. You don't want to ask too much of Julian Sayin, but Minnesota defensively, you want to make it about Julian Sayin as much as humanly possible. You want the focal point of this game to be if Julian Sayin beats you, he beats you. But you want to make it a thing to where you force some 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, obvious passing situations where you say, redshirt freshman, if we lose because you shredded our defense. And I think with that being the world you want to live in, you got to get to 3rd down. And I'm not even saying you have to win every 3rd down, but a friend of mine has a saying, you go to the barbershop enough, you get a cut. You got to go to the barbershop. Got to go to 3rd down here if you're Minnesota. Got to force 3rd downs, and at that point in time, Minnesota does a great job disguising coverages, and you increase your chances of good things happening for your defense if you force 3rd down and passing. That's all I'm going to say here. Pretty straightforward, but Minnesota's got a top 5 sack rate in college football, so if you can get a 3rd down and heat them up a little bit, force some errant decisions. Okay, now, maybe we got a game here, Minnesota. Maybe that 23.5 number is looking a little bit appetizing to you if you're a Golden Gopher fan. Swing your sword is, I think, the main thought I have here when it comes to Minnesota defensively. Now, in addition to that, Coy Parrish is the player that I would nominate for Minnesota that I want to have the largest impact on this game possible. How do you utilize him? Because he had offers from Ohio State. He could have gone over there. He could switch sidelines for you tomorrow if you wanted him to and be a guy that starts for Ohio State. What's his role like on the defensive side? Because, I don't know how you want to draw it up here. I don't know what's practical for you, but if it's me, I want him to have as large a role as possible defensively in trying to take away Jeremiah Smith. Now, I understand you can't go line him up at corner and have him just man up with Jeremiah Smith. That feels irresponsible. But, with how talented he is, Coy Parrish that being, I need him to be involved in our defensive game plan as much as possible. And also now, you remember him during the springtime, running around with that split jersey, half offense, half defense. Haven't really seen the Coy Parrish offensive package really be utilized too much just yet. Why not now, dude? Again, smoke them if you got them. They haven't seen a ton of that on tape. You have it in the bag. I have to believe by what I've seen during spring practice. Let's let Coy Parrish cook a little bit here. Get him the ball on the offensive side of things. Allow him to be impactful to every sense of the word, taking away Jeremiah Smith on the defensive side. He'll factor in the return game. Coy Parrish Have a day, dude. That's how you win this game if you're Minnesota, which is kind of the big takeaway here. Like, if you're talking about the 23.5-point spread, what would you need to force an upset in Columbus? You'd have to have the Julian Sayin gutter ball game, and you'd have to have Minnesota go dig deep in the bag of tricks and do enough on the line of scrimmage to force that kind of a game. All right? So offensively for Minnesota, I need something on the ground, dude. Need something on the ground. And you don't need to be dominant, but I need enough to make sure this Ohio State defense can't just pin their ears back and be aggressive and give us fits in the run game to where I say, hey, Drake Lindsey, you got to throw the ball, dude. Like, they're going to throw the ball. Make no mistake about it. But, like, I don't want it to be a thing where we are put into obvious passing situations and we don't set them up for success. That's not the world you want to live in here. You want to give him quick, easy throws, get the ball out of his hands in a effective manner. Ohio State does a great job getting after the quarterback. You cannot have a world where you have sitting duck Drake Lindsey and Ohio State gets to just go rush the passer. So something on the ground, quick passes, easy access throws, help your quarterback out is my point here. Now, when we speak of Ohio State, defensively, the game plan is pretty straightforward. Don't get bored being physical, and don't give up explosives. Like, there's going to be a lot of rally to the football plays. I mean, Minnesota puts the ball in the air quite a bit, but they're not one of those teams that's just like, air raid necessarily. It's going to be a lot of quick game. Like I just said, get the ball out. So, go make a tackle in space. Don't get bored making a tackle in space. Make sure you're taking the good angle. All the boring stuff playing defensive football, if Ohio State does that, should win the game. Then go back to explosives. Don't get caught sleeping. Kind of the same thing we just said with don't have the missed assignments, don't have the missed tackles, all those things. Like, if those are things that Ohio State checks the box with, guess what? It becomes about talent. If it's about talent, Ohio State's winning this game, and Ohio State's probably covering. So, for our pick in this game, I don't see Julian Sayin having his first-year starter moment in this spot against Minnesota, as good as I think Minnesota is going to have a game plan defensively put together here. I think Ohio State just has too much up front. I think Ohio State can still win, not the ugly way, but the somewhat methodical way, if you will. So I'll take Ohio State, the more well-rounded Ohio State team, to win, take them to cover, and the Buckeyes stay unbeaten at the crib and on the course of the season. And once again, for us at least, I don't see them being knocked down in the rankings after Saturday's action with a win over Minnesota. So I want to finish the show with something that was said by one Steve Sarkisian when he was asked about the matchup this weekend, in particular with the quarterbacks, with Arch Manning and DJ Lagway. The question was essentially, hey, you got two quarterbacks here that are talented in Lagway and Manning, but both a little bit inexperienced. Kind of a nice way to ask, hey, neither guy's played great so far. How do you help them? And the question was, how do you help them when it comes to the mental side of this game? And how do you help them gain some confidence? Essentially, I'm paraphrasing here, is what was posed to them. So I thought Sark's answer was really insightful and was a pretty good pulse as to where we are right now in college football. So go ahead and take a listen to this. I thought it was insightful.
I think one thing that came out of this weekend as well, and I'm looking around the country at the high-profile players, I don't know if any of them are living up to what everybody said they were supposed to be. But we're in this era right now of everybody's got a phone, so everybody's got Twitter. There's 9,000 podcasts going on. The coverage over college football is more and more intense than it's ever been. And so players are getting put up on these pedestals really quickly in their careers. And I felt like this weekend I could feel some guys pressing, not so different maybe than Arch was pressing early on, to where they feel like they have to live up to, whether it's whatever they're allegedly making through NIL or because this is what the media is saying I'm supposed to be or I'm not being. College football players are getting critiqued and criticized more now than they ever have in the past too. And so this is a different era that we're in. And I think that we've got to do a great job as coaches of, I don't want to say shelter, but we got to protect our guys, and because they're not pros yet. All right, and the majority of them probably will be, of the guys that I'm talking about. But we've got to do a really good job of putting them in the right mental space to where they're still enjoying playing the game of football with their college football teammates. And so, to me, that's the point to these guys, And I think that they got to play for the love of the game, because they do love the game. They need to play football and not work football. And I think that's something we've been working on with Arch, and I'm sure there's a lot of other coaches around the country that are going through similar things in that realm.
I think Sark's on the money there. Think about it, too. How many guys we talked about in the preseason? Drew Aller is going to be the man at Penn State. Still might be. Cade Klubnik going to take Clemson back to the top of college football. Not the case. DJ Lagway, we crowned him like the day after they beat LSU. Arch Manning, the last name, the pedigree, all that. There was so much hype around all these guys, and all those guys I just mentioned, to me at least, look like they're playing just a touch tight. As Steve Sarkisian says, pressing, Arch Manning pressing. We'll talk about this right now. Before we do that, though, make sure you're subscribed. Nothing but college football year-round on this platform, the On3 YouTube channel, on this show, The Hard Count. You're a college football sicko. We love you for it, dude. We're sickos, too. So thank you for that. 2, want to be a good-looking sicko, Rowback, bringing you the hard count. Okay, some of the best just active wear, comfortable, good-looking, good-fitting in the entire industry. They're changing the industry, all right? Also, little game day collection from the folks at Rowback. So if you're a Texas fan watching this, I got some nice Longhorn apparel for you with the beautiful burnt orange. I'm telling you, man, Rowback, they're taking care of you. They're also leading the charge on the NIL front, having signed multiple college stars in the past and also the present. So if you hear nothing else and you want to look good and be comfortable now for crispy season, what I got on right now, some Rowback, okay, get dialed in. Go ahead, go to rowback.com, use code JD, and save yourself 20% off if you're a new customer. So 20% off all new customers with code JD at rowback.com, RHOBACK.com. The tees, the quarter zips, the hoodies like this one. Again, I wear this like legitimately every day, if not every day and night. I'm at home doing work, rocking this, watching a show, rocking this. Rowback, bringing y'all the hard count, saving y'all some money, making you look good during college football season, and most importantly, in addition to looking good, keeping you comfortable during college football season and saving you some money with code JD. No periods, just code JD at rowback.com. So we appreciate them. They've been partners with us, too, for a long time. Like, been with this show since we did it out of a makeshift lobby in Waco, Texas. I digress. It has never been harder, going back to the point here that Steve Sarkisian's making, it has never been harder to be a college football player relative to the other stuff you have to manage. He said it. He's like, everyone's got social media now. What he's saying there is everyone has access to you. Everyone has a take. You have a bad game? Guess what? I jump in your DMs. I'm Longhorn Fan 32, and I can say whatever I want to you behind a keyboard. And guess what? It doesn't matter if it's behind a keyboard or if it has a logo as your profile picture or a real person. Like, it can still mess with the person's head, dude. Like, words can still get you all out of whack no matter what kind of perception you want to put out there for the public, whatever kind of persona you want to put out there for the public. Like, that's hard. That's real deal hard. Even if you're just a college kid, it's difficult, man. So the outside noise of it is difficult, plus the fact that you're being paid like a professional. Like, you don't think there's a little bit extra pressure when you see that check clear if you're Arch Manning? I'm making how much to do what? To play a sport? Hey, I better deliver. Because I want to make them right as much as I want to make myself right. I'm being paid this much money. Of course I want to go perform. That's the internal part of this, outside of whatever the pressure is from the person that's actually paying you. That's huge. The thing with college football that is always tricky to navigate if you're a player that's only being amplified right now with the coverage of it, you have the most passionate individuals in the world watching their team, watching our teams play. And I love that. That's what makes college football unique. That's what makes it special, is the passion, the energy, all those things that us as fans bring to the table. It's why it's unique. But you pair that with the fact that you have such a limited sample size every single year to define your team. You get 12 Saturdays guaranteed, 12. 14 weeks, 12 games, 2 buys. And so every single week, that narrative changes so quickly. Like Arch right now, the narrative is he sucks. Not good. Thought he was going to be good because of the last name. He's not good. That's the lazy narrative you're hearing right now. And in some way, you're like, yeah, I mean, based on what he did against Ohio State, what he did against UTEP, like that narrative has got some legs to it if you want to go to war and support that narrative. But if Arch goes out there and lights it up against Florida, goes for 300 yards and 5 touchdowns, narrative flips real quickly. Arch is back. This is the Arch we signed up for. This is the Arch we always knew was there. Hey, Arch, he's a Heisman Trophy front runner, all those things. The narrative changes so quickly. Same thing for DJ Lagway. If he goes out there and balls out, hey, we saw him do it before. We needed to see it again, though. That's all. The narrative can change at a breakneck pace in the world of college football, dude, because of limited sample size and high emotional input. And I love the high emotional input, and I love the limited sample size. But I'm just telling you now, we got to be leery of that pairing it with what Steve Sarkisian said, the podcast world, digital media, all those things. We're happy to be a part of the podcast world, but there's a certain responsibility we all have to retain here, which I want to make sure we say this. We always thought Arch was going to be good. Always. So what Arch has done to this point has been well below my expectations. But who's actually wrong here? Am I wrong for thinking Arch Manning was going to be something, or is Arch Manning wrong for not living up to my expectations? Like, is the guy wrong for saying Arch Manning was going to dominate college football, or is Arch Manning wrong for not dominating college football? Arch was never a different person because of the take we had on him. Arch was always Arch. Same thing for DJ Lagway. And so for us to just absolutely get after Arch Manning for not living up to our own projection of what he was going to be, why did we think Arch Manning was going to dominate college football? For those of us that thought that. Hand up. We did not think he'd dominate. Thought he'd be good, not dominate. But you thought he was going to be a top 5 player in the sport? What were you going off of there? A couple of highlights against Mississippi State? It was impressive, don't get me wrong, but I think that the burden of proof was on you to prove that Arch Manning was going to be a top 5 player in the sport. That was your take. Not anything that led you to believe Arch Manning was going to just be number 1 overall pick the upcoming season. It's not on Arch. It's on the person that had that take. It's on us for thinking Arch was going to be X, Y, and Z. So what I think I take away from what Steve Sarkisian is saying is the values of what used to work in college football still really matter. Like culture, locker room, leadership, poise, composure, all those things. Like whenever NIL became a thing, the take you heard a lot was culture doesn't matter anymore. Even some coaches would say it. Culture doesn't matter anymore. The opposite is true in my opinion. You're throwing millions of dollars at these kids. You're putting extra exposure on this sport when it comes to digital media and the podcast world and all that. You better have a team with their head on straight. You better have some good leaders. You better have a coach that's a good communicator and kind of steady the ship. There better be some good composure, some buy-in internally. Culture, I think, matters even more than it did before. I think poor culture is getting exposed via NIL. Also, too, like we talk about the way you succeed in college football going forward. If you're a player, block out the noise. Be able to be competitively tough. Be mentally tough. If you're a head coach, be able to be a Steve Sarkisian, help Arch get back to what he expects of himself. Like be able to kind of play a little bit of a sports psychology, if you will. So my point in all this is what used to work in college football still works when it comes to culture, composure, competitive toughness, all those things. And I'll be curious now. I can't prove this is a take I have as we part. I'm curious to see if we don't see more athletic departments and more football programs increase their investment in sports psychology. I think it's very much so a thing that is going to be strained more and more as we move further and further into the direction we are in college football. And I love the passion. I love that we get to have a job talking about the sport. But what Steve Sarkisian is saying here is on the money. We're seeing guys press, play tight, all those things, Arch Manning being one of them. And a lot of it is due to the external these guys now have to manage. So can Arch get back on the right side of things? Can DJ Lagway get back on the right side of things? I hope so. I absolutely hope so. But we appreciate y'all making the show what it is, man. We appreciate the fact that there are 9,000 podcasts, and we get to be one of them. And the fact that you listen to this one is something we don't take for granted. Very, very grateful for. And we appreciate y'all very much so for making us a part of your rhythms, daily routine, whatever it is, because it's truly a dream come true for us. So for Kane Smith on the ones and twos, making everything you see here go, for myself, JD PicKell. Follow the socials on your way out. Instagram, Twitter, @JD PicKell. We appreciate y'all. We love y'all. We'll keep this party rolling, and we will see y'all